Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Wormwitch, self-titled Wormwitch, out July 26 on Profound Lore Records. The album has 9 tracks, 41 minutes in length, and this is the band's 4th full-length studio album. They are a Canadian black metal band. As you could expect from a record that has 9 songs and 41 minutes, the experience is pretty compact. It's a nicely built record, and I think the way they diffused some of the overall density of sound that comes from the album being very cohesive and compact is by allowing certain tracks on this album to have different style intros. These intros work well because they not only give a unique fingerprint to the songs, they create the right amount of pockets throughout the album that makes the experience a little bit easier to digest. The record doesn't become a little bit cumbersome, it doesn't overburden the listener, and it rather has the right ebbs and flows in order for the experience to be fresh, in order for the album to be engaging. So great design that takes the most out of these individual songs to create a great overall perspective. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, I think this is, on one hand, a prototypical black metal record. I don't think they're reinventing the wheel. I don't think they're doing anything here that we'd not necessarily have seen before. And if you're a fan of the genre, I think you're going to be a fan of this record, because it's an album that checks all the boxes as far as black metal is concerned. It has a very traditional approach at first glance, and that allows the record to have that sense of stability sound-wise from beginning to end, outside of those different intros that the record has, like using an acoustic intro on one song, going with a little bit of a sample on another. Those things are definitely slightly outside the box, but not completely redefining the genre. Where I think this album sound-wise has its uniqueness is perhaps on the impact that the drums have on how you perceive the overall experience of this record. When you think about black metal, you normally think about very grimy, driven guitar riffs that have a sense of darkness to them, menacing at times, that become the calling card of the records, of the songs, because of its pattern that we've seen develop throughout the years within the genre. This album has all of that, but it also has a much thicker, a much heavier, a more pronounced drum sound that separates itself from that more drive, from that more dark, menacing guitar sound that the record also has. Having the two separated from one another, it allows the drums to stand out on their own. It allows this record to not be as narrow sound-wise, and to be a little bit bigger, to have a little bit more volume, to have a little bit a bigger impact, a bigger footprint, if you will, but not lose all the traditional elements of black metal, which is still very black, very dark, very menacing driven songs. So it's an album that has that prototypical black metal sound while infusing new nuances or different nuances that allow the album to stand on its own and not necessarily be confused for something else. It really gives a sense of uniqueness to the way the album comes across, from a design to sound, and that to me is extremely important regardless of the genre, regardless of the band. You want your record to stand out, you want your record to have its own fingerprint, its own DNA, and this album, in terms of how the drums cooperate with the guitars, the distance between the two, the heaviness that the album has, not just darkness, the heaviness that the album has, and how the two allow the sound to create space, to create size. To me, it's really important, and it's really nice to see on an album like this. Now, once it gets into the vocals are very consistent from start to end. Perhaps one of the elements that never really changes, never really deviates. It doesn't need to go into new avenues regardless of the style of the song, regardless of the intro of the song. The vocals stay very consistent from start to finish, and that is an important element because it creates a very defined red line for the album outside of some of the elements that the sound has that also don't deviate that much. So vocally, I enjoy the approach. I liked where the vocals were in the mix. I like the fact that the vocals added to the both spectrums of the sound, and what I mean by that is that the vocals have a sense of heaviness to them, but they also have a sense of darkness and a sense of driven or pushing the sound, or connecting with the sound that's being pushed forward a little bit more, and pairing up with that in order for the experience to be a little bit more robust. So the vocal performance all around is extremely well connected with the overall sound experience, touching on both sides of the spectrum and allowing this record to have that important red line that connects every single song. And that allows this album overall to be a very no frills black metal record with interesting nuances, with interesting characteristics that on one hand allow the album to stay connected with the genre and with what a fan would expect from a black metal album, while at the same time infusing some unique characteristics that give this album its own experience. So great record all around. I enjoy the sound, I enjoy the vocals, I enjoy the production, how everything came together. It's an album that is just a lot of fun to listen to, and like I said, if you're a fan of the genre, there's no way you're not going to be a fan of this album. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Inner War. I love the fact that it starts off with an acoustic guitar. It has a beautiful melody, and then I love the fact that that underlying melody becomes the underlying belly of the track, allowing the heaviness, allowing the darkness to come in with the drums, with the guitars, to really push the song forward, but never really losing that underbelly that we saw with the acoustic melody start to become a layer within the track. It's a song that becomes heavier, as would be expected. It becomes darker, and that darkness and that heaviness punches through while leaving this melodic tail behind it. The vocals add to the overall darkness of the song, and I felt like they were perfect for the style of the track. The drums sound relentless, as they do on every single song on this record, and that helps give size to the track, give heaviness to the track, while allowing the guitars to at moments thin out that experience, creating movement, parallel movement between one and the other. Next we have Godmaegen, and this is a very heavy, menacing track from the start. It has that thunderous drum sound that's pretty much the calling card of this album from start to end. It has a more bleak guitar sound, and then you have those cavernous vocals that fall deep into the sound and almost become part of it as they push their way out. It's a very relentless track, at least for the first half of the song. It just feels like it has a sense of purpose, very intense, and then when it reaches the midway point, it becomes more methodic, it becomes more melancholic. I would go as far as to say melodic and spiritual. It's a track that just morphs into something else, and the moment that it morphs into this kind of more melancholic experience, that's when the guitar solo comes in, matches perfectly, it becomes the perfect segue to what the solo offers, and then as you exit the solo, you go back into this experience of melodic melancholy that stays there until the end of the track. I also enjoy the fuzzier guitar sound towards the end. I thought they could have used feedback, for example. It would have created a very similar experience of finale to the way this song closes off, but I felt like the fuzziness perhaps connected the opening, the intense and heavy sound at the opening of the song with that more melancholic experience. It's somewhere in the middle, and that was a nice way of closing the track, because it doesn't go full circle, but it gets very close to it. Last but definitely not least, Bright and Poisonous. Heavy driven with a lot of intensity, a lot of built up aggression, if you will. Once again, the drums taking the brunt of the heavier sound on this track, and also the brunt of what pushes the track forward. At least you feel catapulted forward by that heavier drum experience, almost creating a sense of a stampede. Now, the guitars on this track offer a more dark essence to the song, and a more melodic essence to the song as well, which helps thin out some of the heaviness of the drums. But the drums are always pushing forward, so it never really thins it out that much. It just creates a more textured sound all around. The vocals add intensity, or they match the existing intensity that the sound has, so the two tied in perfectly with one another. And then it's a track that at times has a lot of rock and roll riffs. It's a very riffy sounding song for a song that has that much heaviness coming out of the drums. There are still pockets where the guitars overshadow the drums, and that's when the song becomes super riffy, and that gives a more blackened feel to the song at moments, not necessarily a black metal song with great riffage in it. It's kind of the other way around. So interesting song, one that stands out for sure due to the predominance of great riffage throughout the entire song, and how at times that same riffage overshadows the heaviness of the drums. This is it, Wormwitch, with the self-titled Wormwitch, out July 26 on Profound Lore Records. Hit me up in the comment section, let me know your thoughts on this record, and I'll see you all at the next one. Take care, guys.